So most of you know that I worked in Hawaii for 2 years before coming to Harris. That was a telescope. And on the right, it was kind of cool to see that just looking out the window. Often on the right that's snow on the ground. Even though it's Hawaii, 14,000 feet, it does actually get cold enough where it snows. When you're not working, among other things you can do, try to catch an 8-foot wave. I did not succeed. You can also walk a few miles and see lava flowing into the ocean. Of course, when it gets as bad as it got last year, forget. But also when I was in Hawaii, well, let me back up. When I was in New York, my thinking about being an astronomer started to change as I saw no one could get their grants approved, no one could get jobs, even though they were really talented. That's a policy choice. But as long as they could find the funding. But at that time, I thought, I'm going to stick with astronomy because I really like the subject. So that's what I went to Hawaii to try to be. But obviously, that's not how things ended up. So why? Many reasons. This is a big one that I learned when I was in Hawaii. This is a proposed new telescope. It's proposed, but for policy and political reasons, it's been tied up in court, may never happen. In fact, one of the biggest proponents, just before he passed away, told me he wasn't optimistic. Yeah, that guy. He is a great guy. He indirectly helped me get started in the field, but talking to him and thinking about the whole telescope debate, one conclusion it reminded me of, scientists have no political clout. And then Trump got in. So I started to think, what can we do? What can I do? Can blue states fight him? I lived in a blue state at that time. Hawaii, he honestly seemed like a good bet to take him on. Hawaii, he is very multicultural, very open, and Trump doesn't fly there. So of course they took him on Muslim ban and many other issues. And yeah, 2 Republican judges, those guys, ruled against the Muslim ban. One of them is from Hawaii. To me, that's not a coincidence. In general, you can't be in Hawaii for very long and remain bigoted. At least it would be very hard to. Because that's just the way Hawaii is. But it's not just the social justice. I saw that bird at a wildlife refuge on Kauai. The nene is a state bird of Hawaii. It's still alive today because of public policy choices. It was as low as 30 of them left before the conservation effort started. But about a month after I visited that refuge, Republicans opened the refuge in Alaska to oil drilling. And I immediately thought, what kind of species aren't going to survive because of that policy choice? And what's worse, 5-4, the Republican Supreme Court majority. I started thinking more and more about that. They could declare the Endangered Species Act unconstitutional. They did uphold the Muslim ban, and they managed to blow up anti-discrimination laws. Not what Trump wants to do could happen without that. So the biggest threat to policies that we might support, it's not Trump, it's these guys. They're the ones who have got to sign off on everything, and they'll be there for a lot longer than Trump. So, what is there to do about them? And by the way, they're very close to the historical norm for the Supreme Court. I haven't actually finished this yet, but it's awesome. That's the guy who wrote it. This basically is a history of all the bad stuff the Supreme Court has done in history, and believe me, there's a lot. This is a thought experiment. 1954. That's when they declared segregation unconstitutional. But they had that chance 60 years earlier. What if they had taken it then? Might we be 60 years further along than we are now? So, but working more influence on policy, we realized, shameless plug, I want to start a UC3P podcast about that subject. But, so, it was in Hawaii. Science, social justice, environmentalism. Policy was where I was needed, was where I could do the most good, so I started in applying to policy schools. Then something else happened to really reinforce that. How bad, I'm sure. I can tell you, it was every bit as terrifying as it sounds. And one of what I thought was going to be the last thoughts I had is, if that's real, well, the youth is going to totally level North Korea, and that'll cinch Donald Trump's re-election. America loves its war presidents. That didn't happen, thankfully. But, obviously. But, so, how did I find out about Harris? Her. This is from our Astro Outreach Day. She's my coworker. And she tells me, she's awesome. And she tells me, my brother is a student at Harris. And I think you'd be great at it. And so I'm here now, and she was right. One more stuff. Hey, that may be history, but most of it, but we're all young. History is still being written. And that's part of why we're here, and Lord knows, in this era, we really do need to rewrite history. Yes, David.
Why don't scientists have that much political power?
Great question.
Can you repeat it? I didn't hear David. Why don't scientists have that much political power?
Which is a great question, and there are many reasons for that. One of which is scientists are not wealthy and cannot afford high-priced lobbyists. Another one would be that scientists often don't seem to realize the importance, the impact that policy has on science. They kind of, a lot of them, not all of them by any means, but a lot kind of like to see themselves as above the dirty business of politics, as noble searchers for truth, and so don't engage as much as they really ought to, which is why you see things like that telescope not getting built, or science constantly being underfunded. So there are a lot of reasons, and I think those are two of the most important ones. Yes?
Hi, I'm Taylor. So I really like to Kachakucha. I was wondering where you picture yourself in this movement and this fight. Do you yourself as an advocate, as a local policymaker at the federal level? It sounds like you're very invested.
Well, thank you. I would like to think so. Honestly, I could go many ways. Yeah, I'm pretty open, honestly. I see myself working at the state or local level, especially in, well, a place like California, for instance, where stuff actually gets done. I know here in Chicago, they're trying to move on climate change, and I'd like to be a part of that. But there are many other options. As I probably mentioned, I'm applying to places at think tanks to try to research and develop the best new policies that, not at the federal level for at least a couple years, but maybe these states like California or Hawaii or Illinois, now that we got rid of a Republican governor, could actually implement.
What's the coolest thing that you've seen with the nuclear telescope?
Fair question. What's the coolest thing? Oh, it's hard to pick one. And there were a lot. We looked at planetary systems that are forming. The jargon is protoplanetary disk. You don't really need to know that. But basically, it's a disk that's going to form from a star and planet. We looked at some of those. We looked at distant black holes. And everything in between, really. There's a lot that we